Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abasi. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning to all our viewers out there. We begin in Asia, and I would like for the three of you, since you are in a newsroom, to tell me how you would react if there was an earthquake that hit Nigeria, or rather Lagos, and everywhere started shaking. We begin in Taiwan with footage from a newsroom where an anchor was actually, just check this out.
都有一些器材呢正在往下掉，地震速报已经告诉我们了，在7点58左右呢发生的有感地震，这是非常有感的，而且呢震央看起来是在花莲地区。虽然说呢震度是3级以上地区，但老实说，目前的晃感因为非常的明显，可能不只是3级左右，大家不要紧张，这个地震感受的确是比较明显的。包括摄影棚都已经有灯架开始在倒下来了，因为摇晃的时间相当长，从刚刚地震一开始到现在可能持续时间已经有将近40秒甚至50秒左右，到目前为止都没有停下来。
That lady she's dedicated to her job. If you look at the damage from the earthquake, again, Taiwanese are used to, if you think about where the tectonic plates are underneath the country, they're used to this, right? So this was a 7.4, I think, on the Richter scale. So far, about 4 people dead, about 26 to 50 buildings collapsed. You can see there's a rooftop swimming pool with the building shaking so much that the water is falling over from the rooftop. The impact on business is obvious. Taiwan is the Silicon Valley of Asia, right? You think about semiconductors and chip making facilities there, particularly TSMC, the Taiwanese semiconductor company. They actually partially halted chip production due to the earthquake. We understand they might restart later on, but they're still trying to take an assessment of damage. So if you think about supply chains and if you think about all we've talked about with chips, so different companies like, Oracle and so on and so forth, wanting to set up chip factories, or rather fabs as they call them, in other countries. TSMC doing so in Japan. Issues like this, if TSMC was to shut down now, imagine what that would mean for everyone else. So the death toll, again, so far only 4 people, but that could rise going forward. Beyond that, we're going to be looking at OPEC. We're expecting OPEC Plus, rather, a ministerial meeting later on today. It's expected that they will keep production cuts where they are. They will extend them. If you look at oil prices this morning at about 6:30 GMT, Brent crude, we talked about this yesterday, Dr. Abati in particular saying, the impact on human life and so on, and geopolitical issues. But he's talking about the Israel strike in that Iranian compound in Damascus, and Iran saying that there will be a retaliation. So everyone's on edge right now. So Brent crude is flirting with $90. I think JP Morgan, or somebody has already come out to say we might hit $100 already. And there's 2 sides to that, right? This is why everyone should focus on when oil prices are rising. Yes, Nigeria as an oil producing nation will earn more money, but then on the flip side, you're likely to see diesel rising. Well, of course, there's a headline today that Dangote refinery is going to be producing diesel. The more supply, the better, because as oil prices rise, it's going to cost more money for you at the pump to buy fuel, and that has a pass-through effect on inflation. Over to Joe Biden and Xi Jinping holding their first phone conversation since they met back in November or so of last year. Both sides, the White House and over in China, saying that it was a very candid, honest, upfront conversation. They talked about geopolitical issues. It's suggested that TikTok may have been mentioned during that conversation, but also Biden particularly talking about Taiwan, the South China Sea, Hong Kong, and also Xi Jinping himself, who, as you know, met with U.S. CEOs at the China Development Conference not too long ago. Him talking about trying to improve relations between the U.S. and China, but acknowledging that things are still strained. So perhaps some improvement there between the two of them. Let's get to monetary policy. We've been hearing from a number of Federal Reserve heads. That one of them is Mary Daly. She is the president of the San Francisco Federal Reserve bank, and she essentially was talking. She was in Nevada, a fireside chat, and take a listen to what she said. She said that she talked about the risk of cutting interest rates too soon, and she also said that this rate cuts that the market is so fixated on to happen in June, that it could not happen. That rate cuts are just a projection, not a promise.
The risk of cutting interest rates too soon is a real risk. You know, we had a roundtable before we walked in here with workforce and community leaders, and you can really see the vestiges of the long tail of high inflation. You know, it does take a toll, and so the risk of cutting it too soon is that gets locked in. Right now, we're not at price stability. If we lock inflation in at this level, that is just a toxic tax on everyone, but it really hits hardest people who are least able to bear it. And we've already seen some of that occur, and we don't want to continue that. We want to fully bring inflation back to our 2% target and restore the balance in the economy that's necessary to maintain that. So I think that is a very reasonable baseline, but I would like to say here that this is a projection, right? 3 rate cuts is a projection, and a projection is not a promise. And I think that's really important, because a projection is saying, here's how the economy is expected to evolve, and here's how policy evolve should that occur. But you have to maintain this ready position, and I feel like we're in a very good place to be ready. We have to be ready for, what if inflation's stickier than we projected or I projected? If I look at my projection and I say, well, what if inflation's stickier? We may want to cut less. What if the labor market starts to falter or inflation comes down more rapidly? Well, then we might be in a position where we would think cutting more is appropriate. So it's really like if you play any court sport, it could be pickleball, tennis, something on the court, badminton, you always know that being in the ready position is the best way to be prepared for whatever comes your way. So that's where I want to be, ready, and I think we are, with the policy rate set at a good level, with the economy and policy both in a good place, and with a projection of 3 interest rate cuts. That still seems reasonable, but we have more work to do before I'm confident that on that path.
Yeah, I see. One thing I love about Americans, they're always making sports analogies. So you heard her analogy of the courts, playing tennis or, you know, badminton or so on and so forth. And then in terms of strategizing with looking ahead. So she is in Nevada, which of course is the state capital, of course, commercial capital is Las Vegas. And Las Vegas just released an economic report on the impact of the Formula One race that took place just late last year. I think it was Red Bull that triumphed with the most wins. Here's just an intro of what that was like if you looked at the visuals.
From Las Vegas, this is Formula One. The world's greatest sport awaits its newest stage. This town has waited 40 years for the pinnacle of motorsport to return, and this will be a Saturday fight night like no other that this town has seen.
So you see, one of the things I love about covering business is that you can cover anything, entertainment, sports. So parents out there, please let your children study economics and study business. You can work in politics and be an economic advisor. You can work in sports. You can work in a movie studio. Check a look at this 40-page report. We just look at some highlights of the economic impact. The Las Vegas released this report, a 40-page report of the impact of Formula One. Look at this. The total impact, $1.5 billion. And just to tell you how many rich people go to Vegas to gamble and spend money, look at the visitor spend. $800 million, right? Jobs created 7,300, including construction. And then, importantly, look at tax revenue. And then also, in addition to jobs being created, the local workers there, the wages that they earned, about over $50 million. So, you know, and this is not them promising ahead of what was going to happen. This is them waiting, doing a concise report and telling the public in Vegas, you know, how much money they earned just from Formula One coming there to host that race. Finally, to Nigeria, it's the front page of today's This Day newspaper, Nigeria's newspaper of record. And this is a story that warms my heart, because we had a report on the dangers of electricity subsidies on this country. 1.6 trillion naira possibly being spent on electricity subsidies. And again, it's sources that are saying that Nigeria is looking to raise tariffs, electricity tariffs, to make them market reflective. Who are they raising them on? It's going to be on the urban centers where we are, with this beautiful riverside, scenic view, all the people that are here making money on the urban side, they're the ones that are going to pay, because the urban side, I think as far as the share, 15%, but it's about 40% of tariffs that are generated from the urban center. So they're going to raise it, I think it's about 200 naira per kilowatt hour or so. It has not been confirmed yet, it's according to sources, but I hope it's true. That's our report for today.
So, I mean, Rotus, one thing is certain, definitely the energy bill will go up. I think pretty much we have always agreed on the mentality as regards, subsidies and even ensuring how, we regulate our way around, because we need cost-reflective tariff to be able to get much more needed investments into the energy sector. And, but I also will argue that we must also be able to cushion the effect for a couple of people. So if this is in the works, let's see how this pans out. But I just hope they'll be able to give us steady electricity after all of this is done, because the problem in this country is really about that distribution mechanism. Secondly, Rotus, when I saw Las Vegas making that much money from Formula One, my heart bleeds. You know why my heart bleeds? Nigeria has so much potential that we can as well use. Turn our own Sambisa forests into Las Vegas. And it's very sad, because the funny thing is, Las Vegas was actually deserts. Nevada, deserts. But people turned it into a big ecosystem. It was desert wasteland that people turned into a money-spinning, tourism-based economy. We have Sambisa forest. That's why we are complaining about bandits and
Dubai.
everything in Sambisa. Why can't we turn Sambisa forest into Dubai? Turn it into Las Vegas so that they run Formula One in Sambisa forest.
We don't even need to turn a desert land. We have so many. Opportunities. What happened to Cali Vegas? Was that not in
Vegas?
Calas Vegas. What happened to Tinapa? There's so many. There's a lot of infrastructure that currently stands that could be potentially revenue generating, as we have with Las Vegas. So many. We don't even need to start to look for desert land. But let me go away to that Taiwanese earthquake. First of all, the death toll has risen to 7, as at about 20 minutes ago, by official results. And also that when you look at, as you rightly mentioned, the impact on businesses, at the moment they've downgraded alerts for a tsunami. So that's good news on that end. But like you said, rescue efforts are still ongoing, and we're looking forward to seeing more rescues and less number of death tolls. Then finally, 1 hour, 45 minutes of conversation between President Joe Biden and President Xi Jinping of China. And this is a follow-on from conversations they had, a physical meeting, where they had said that they would have consistent conversations to manage communication. But one of the things that came up in that conversation was that China reiterated its promise not to interfere in the upcoming elections in America. Let's see if indeed they'll remain truthful to that call and that promise at the end of the day.
Okay, a number of quick points. San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly has not said anything new. What she has said just echoes the position of the Federal Reserve, that the Federal Reserve needs more convincing data, that inflation is actually going down, and that data will determine. So the expectation that there will be rate cuts in March has not happened. And Daly herself is not so enthusiastic that by June it will happen. But she didn't rule it out. So that's that about that. However, there is excitement about even the possibility of rate cuts at all. And because of that, Wall Street is going this way, going that way. But investors are also moving in the direction of gold. Spot gold and gold futures have gone up by about 0.8%. And there is an inverse relationship between the spot price of gold and interest rates. When interest rates go down, people buy gold because it's a safe haven asset. As for President Biden and Xi Jinping, it was a check-in. Nobody should think that because of that phone conversation. The last time they had a phone conversation was July 2022. Then they met at the Asia Pacific Economic Summit, APEC, in 2023, November, when they had that working together. But it was a check-in, just to keep an open communication line. It doesn't mean anything in terms of commitment. It doesn't mean that China and the United States are now loving each other. It's like monitoring each other, measuring each other's body temperature. By the way, Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary of the United States, is going to go to Guangzhou and Beijing for the next 5 days. meet with our counterparts. Again, part of the check-in. But the issues that they discussed, they didn't necessarily agree on all the issues. They didn't agree, for example, on Taiwan. And they didn't agree, for example, on the politics over technology and semiconductor. And I'm sure, they didn't agree on a number of other issues, including Gaza, including North Korea. Finally, I'm surprised you didn't talk about the billionaires list. The other day, you were complaining about wigs, how wigs have become important. Look, one of the latest billionaires on that list is Kylie Jenner. She sells cosmetics. So one of these days, Rotus, you'll be surprised. Those people who sell wigs that you talked about the other day, they may just make the Forbes billionaire list.
Well, in addition to studying economics and business, maybe you should also study beauty and fashion, or perhaps go to beauty school. That is the way forward. Well, thank you very much, Rotus.